Hey, hey,
Hello!
hey. Another week. We did it.
We did it. Here
Unbelievable.
we are.
I think I'm losing count.
14. I am not
Four-
losing count.
14.
14. Last week was
Ooh.
lucky number 13, and we did not even say it once.
Huh. Okay. 14. Difficulty age.
One of us has a 14-year-old currently.
Mmm. Mmm.
Mm,
Mmm.
mm.
I just harkened back to those days for myself.
Even better. I don't think I can remember those days.
Well, fair enough, but glad to be 49. Let's just say that.
That's an interesting question because a lot of people would like to go back.
I, you know what? I hear people say that. My answer has never been I would like to go back to college. That's typically it's like would you go back to college?
Okay,
No. No, I would not.
right? We used to talk about when working in the video game world, we used to talk about the fact that men, boys in particular, all aspired to be 18. Young boys aspired to be 18, and older boys aspired to be 18.
That's funny. That's funny. I for the record, Rob does not aspire to be 18,
Good to know.
which is a good segue. Munir, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Munir Haddad, the co-founder and CEO of Kiosk, an advertising agency, and I am a fan and past worker in media and video games, and I have supported clients in those fields as well as media, entertainment, higher education, financial services, healthcare, and technology, which are all things I love. So that's a nice place to be. And I believe in stakeholder capitalism.
That is
How
something
about you?
that I wanted to talk to you about on a previous episode, but thanks for asking. And I'm Rob Haddad. I'm Munir's brother. I'm a software seller and a homemaker. I've spent my commercial year. That sounded like the dating game.
It did. It sounded very much like the dating game. Who is it? Chuck Willery? Was that the host?
Maybe Pat, not the original. I don't think the OG, but anyway, I've spent my commercial career working in sports, media, and technology. I love networking and learning. I'm very enthusiastic. And after 16 years at Major League Baseball, I had my first career pivot in
Oh,
2015. Yeah. Is this pivot number two?
you really did write this like the dating game.
I do want to add if Tiny Desk did a Wrapped, I'd be in the top 0.02% of viewers. Yo, Munir, what'd you do this week?
I'm glad you asked. I am still in Northern California, which is where I come to you from our kiosk offices. And we had our holiday party this past week, which was fantastic. We have a remote workforce, and so everybody came into town, which was lovely. And we were able to be outside, which was a first for NorCal for a while. It's been foggy and overcast here with a little bit of rain, but the sun broke through for us. We actually spent time outside, and it was marvelous. Great to spend time together, proving that human interaction, as we have spoken about before, is vitally important to a team working well together, or at least in our case, it feels like it's vitally important to teams working together. And seeing people in a social context builds that trust and capacity to know that everybody's on the same team and working for the same goals. So that was absolutely lovely and energizing. And I am so excited I am excited for next week.
That's great. That's great.
How about you, Rob? What did you do last
Oh, thanks for asking. I shoveled.
week?
I shoveled. Yeah. Snow. I shoveled snow,
Yeah.
to be clear.
I'm glad you were clear about
Thank you.
that.
Yeah. The first snow here in New
Oh,
Jersey,
okay.
gorgeous. Gorgeous. I went outside about 6:30 a.m. My
Oh,
oldest daughter had to leave for work, I think around
oh, geez.
7:30.
Which meant you
And
had to get to
so,
work.
well, I knew that if I didn't get out there, anyhow. So I went out with the shovel with great enthusiasm, as you can imagine. The first snow, you step outside, you hear it crunch beneath your feet. Reasonable amount, too. It's probably 4 inches, nothing
Right.
extraordinary. If it was 30 inches,
Yeah.
the enthusiasm level would have been much, much lower. And I got to work. I did. I got to work, cleaned off the cars, did my thing. We have a long driveway and narrow, so there's not a lot of maneuvering, but it is exhilarating. The
Mm-hmm.
the cold air in your face reminds you that you're alive. It was
Yes.
still snowing. We actually underestimated the prediction, and it was a pleasant surprise. Everything was white and glistening. You can imagine it. You know what
I
snow looks
can.
like.
I do.
So that is springboarding me into next week because it's this vibrant introduction to the holiday season.
Ah, yes. It's the holiday season. I don't know. We probably have to license that. So I might have to
Stop singing, yeah.
stop singing.
And and I baked cookies. I'm the
All right.
I've inherited. I haven't inherited. I have taken over the cookie baking in the
Okay.
house. I usually
Okay.
wait another week before I
Okay.
make the thumbprints or the blossoms.
Oh, wow. Look at you. Okay.
It's pretty straightforward. But I baked the chocolate with peppermint kisses on Friday
Oh,
and did the peanut butter with regular chocolate kisses on Saturday.
wow.
Best batch,
Okay.
best batch I've made. Best batch I've made.
What
I'm
about
very excited about
what about the standard decorating cookies? Did you
it.
make those
That will
too?
be next week. The sugar cookies will be next weekend
Okay.
to really kind of
Drive it home.
cut, reindeer shapes and Christmas trees. Start with the non-denominational cookies
Okay. All
this
right.
week, and then we'll get into the Christmas vibe next week. And plus,
Fantastic.
the sugar cookie dough is crumbly and really aggravates me.
Oh,
Every year, I'm like, should it be this crumbly? And every year they're great, but I get frustrated by how crumbly the sugar cookie dough is. So,
that's a fascinating insight into the mind of Robert Haddad.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
yeah. Oh, and one more thing, working on an RFP, which I know you can relate to, and I actually had a question.
Oh,
Surely, as you go through the RFP process, you're trying to anticipate the questions your buyer has. Even though they're
yes.
providing you with structure and an outline and telling you what they want, we've all been there where in a discovery call, in person or on video, we uncover things that they didn't initially share.
Right.
And that can't not be in your head. You have to be thinking about that. No?
Of course you do. And, I always read the RFPs and the words and language that's used, as well as the services that are being asked for. And then if you have a Q&A period, the Q&A as a divining rod, if you will, for what the real problems are. Because I
Mm.
mean, certainly um, we respond to quite a few RFPs in our life, and we're sometimes even industry specific about some of these RFPs. So you can really start to decode, if you will, where the problems and pain points are. And then there are times even where you may have some intel about who the previous supplier was. Or even if you don't, you might be able to read between the lines of what type of supplier that was. And yeah, we absolutely try to then determine, we talk about right to sell, right to win, right? So, are the things that we are providing based on reading between the lines, things that are actually going to help solve that individual's problem? And then once we agree that we are a solution that is valuable and would be valuable to them, we definitely respond to the RFP in the manner in which it is written to us, as well as predicting again those areas of need. And how do you find it?
Oof. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate your insight there. I think I try and separate the want to be in person or in conversation, right, with what's being asked.
Mm-hmm.
So, my preference, of course, is to always be able to do discovery on a call instead of in this digital experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you you have great coworkers and collaborators, so there's some energy behind what the response can look like, which
Mm-hmm.
is helpful, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
I think being in community with thought leaders and experts in their field is beneficial
Mm-hmm.
um, to to the proposal that you're going to put
Yes.
forth.
I also like the show me, don't tell me. And while I'm not a big fan of free consulting, I also do think that showing that you have spent the time and do care about the client and their problems is beneficial. And so we will often at least roll up our sleeves a little bit and provide some insight into what we do think about them and what they're actually telling us. Um, and, you know, it time and time again, if you show intent and a desire, generally that comes back. And this year, I would say we have been invited to a lot of those follow up presentations where you go through that first pass of um, the digital work. I am often curious and wondering at what point, because sometimes we do public RFP responses, and sometimes there are a lot of respondents to those public RFPs, and they have a rubric. They tell you like this much is this many points, and this much is this many points, and um,
Oh,
I am wondering at what point that starts to get fed into a machine,
mm,
and then from that machine-based approach, you may or may not, they might invite the top 3 or 5 respondents then to an in-person as a chemistry check, if you will. Um, my work tends to be very hands-on. As an advertising agency, you need to work closely with the brand and the people that are the brand and the company that is the brand, and ensure and understand the services and be able to feed and give permission for those people to do exactly what they can do and allow them to see what could be possible. And so the chemistry is very important. But I was saying, our responses this year, it seems like we have been invited back to that in person conversation at a pretty good rate. Haven't won them all, but it shows that we're on the right track. And I would say that, if you've leaned in a little bit, it helps.
Love that. That's great. Something that you mentioned about the ability to work with people in person, and it's a topic that we've talked about quite a bit, is making me think about the current environment for early career employees and the challenges not just in job seeking and gaining employment, but also in integration into company culture.
Hmm.
And I think we need to talk about some of the trends that are occurring and how it pertains to historical trends as well, as it pertains to early career employment. Because I think it connects really nicely to the higher ed conversation as well.
It 100% does. So a couple of statistics for you from one of the education conferences I was just at. There are about 4 million college students that want internships every year, and about 2 million internships available.
Wow. How is that number compared to past years? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that,
Okay.
unfortunately, but still, it shows you that there's demand and not supply. And that gives universities and companies that offer internships an advantage in terms of their capacity to find and attract. So if you think about universities like Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, that has an internship or work as part of their degree program, huge demand. Northeastern University has a famous now internship as part of their education. And those
Sorry, are you
institutions,
saying a guaranteed internship or a requirement to secure an internship? Are
so I
these
believe that
institutions providing the internship?
that's a great question. I don't have the answer to that, but I believe that because it is a requirement,
Right.
they make sure that they find you an internship. And because it is a requirement and they have services to support both the employer and the students, that they have more of a capacity. Maybe you could look this up. I actually don't have that answer. However, I do know that those institutions have a lot of attention because of the fact that they are supplying an education that has a foundation of internship as part of it. And when you think or talk about the fact that um, entry level is a problem, I mean, you're getting this certainly with some of these selective four-year institutions or traditional four-year institutions. You're getting pressure all the way down the system. Like the individuals, or at least the high-performing individuals at these four-year institutions want, more and more and more, earlier and earlier, which is increasing their desire to gain access to these opportunities. Um, and if you're going to go to a traditional four-year, of course you want to have some sort of uh, opportunity outside of that. And then, um, how you, again, how you find that, how you are meaningfully supported. For a long time, I think career services at some of these four-year institutions were like corporate recruiting. And that was a pipeline to companies that hired a lot of entry level jobs. And I think maybe you might be telling me that there's a change or a structural change in how that's happening.
Well, well, I'm not sure I'm going to tell you that there's a change in how that's happening. What I do want to share, though, is a couple of things now, because you said something that I want to respond to as it pertains to on campus recruiting, corporate recruiting. And I remember hearkening back 30 plus years ago now to when I was a student at the University of Michigan, and we would have companies come in to speak about what life is like working at those companies. So they weren't recruiters for our school, which was the School of Kinesiology. And I was studying sport management. So it wasn't Morgan Stanley coming in and saying, come work with us.
Right.
It was
They were
somebody
going
from
to the.
Nike. It was like,
Oh, okay.
I work at Nike, man. It's amazing. Can't get you a job, but it's super cool if you can get one.
Okay.
But that reminded me like of the saying, don't feed, don't don't teach someone. Um, what is the
Teach,
saying
teach,
about
teach,
teach a man to
teach a
fish?
man to fish,
Yeah, teach
and
a
they'll.
man to
Yeah,
fish.
yeah.
So
Now
what I
I've now I've
realized
now I've
was,
got to think of Mr. Wendell.
is that a line? And anyway, I'm getting off track here. But what I remember is then attending career fairs and students like handing me their resumes. This is a couple of years ago. This is post COVID, handing me their resumes and saying, "I love sports." It's like, okay, let's pause. Let's assume everybody loves sports.
Right.
What else? What else do you
Ah.
do, and what else do you like?
Right.
I
Well.
love sports is not a differentiator.
Yeah.
And when I was in school, everybody wanted internships, ESPN, Nike, that still where people probably want to work now. I still maintained my summer job because it was guaranteed pay. I
Right.
couldn't go somewhere and work for free and spend money to live there. And
Right.
if you remember, a lot of the pushback on telling students that they needed to go get an internship was that these internships weren't paid.
Yeah.
So who could afford to send their college kid who is also going to college, which means they're also paying tuition, to go to New York City or Bristol, Connecticut to get an internship, an unpaid internship?
Right.
And so my response was always, did you have a summer job in high school? And if you do, you should do that for the next 3 years. Get paid. Do what you can
Yeah.
to get
Okay.
paid.
Okay.
Because from my perspective, you're going to get more out of the responsibility that is required of you at a job where they're paying you than you are at an internship where conceivably, again, I'm going back now 20 years, where you
Sure.
might be photocopying or drafting emails or standing around and socializing and not really getting your hands on the meat of what's required to you because that's too important to do. Now, I haven't had an internship at Google. And so surely the experience is different from place to place. But my recommendation to my kids was also get a job more so than
Sure.
get an internship.
Interesting. Okay. I think
But
that there is a lot of conversation around the development of soft skills, and particularly post pandemic. So you have, and I think it was even happening prior to the pandemic. I would hear stories from university professors, sometimes of graduate programs, saying that parents would be on the phone talking about grades and what have you, or their coursework. And I had one university professor say, uh, you know, I appreciate the fact that you're on this call, but you can leave the room and this Zoom, because it was a Zoom, and I'm not going to talk to my student with you in the room, because this is something that this student needs to be able to do. And waited until she saw said parent leave whatever room they were having the Zoom in. So
that
right, I mean,
is that is mind blowing.
but this is what's happening with some. I mean, not everybody. some, to your point, not every family has that luxury. But on the other side, I think that I want to use this word. It's going to be potentially, so the infantilization of our young people, right? And so, yeah, there's no incentive if your parenting is like in front of or always taken care of. There's no incentive then for that young person to to be able to then advocate for themselves, to be able to do the things. But what we were getting at, and we've talked about this probably before, is like you need to be able to show up. To your point about just get a job, like the primary thing is show up to work on time, dress reasonably respectably for the position that you're in, and be able to communicate with other human beings who are at that place of work. And if you're in a service industry, the advantage is you're talking to people all the time, and some of them are not happy because they're not having great days either, or whatever. And so you have to learn how to manage and move your way through that world while maintaining your calm and projecting yourself and being professional. And what does that look like? You have coworkers, and yeah, so I agree with you. We like to hire people that have food service experience for that very reason. And that might be a bias of my own because I had a lot of food service experience, but you have to be able to work with the kitchen, you have to be able to work with the customers, and and there's time-based pressures on you in these things. So I felt like people that know how to navigate that world tend to be really good at customer service, for example, or communicating with clients. And then it's about there's a Harvard Business School professor that talks about you hire for attitude and train for skill.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I'd like to read you something. Thank you. This is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Teen labor participation has been on a long-term downward trend. Since reaching a peak of 57.9% in 1979, the rate fell to 52% in 2000, just prior to the 2001 recession. The rate then dropped rapidly during and after the 2007 to 2009 recession to reach 34.1% in 2011. And since then, it has stayed within a narrow range. The latest projection of labor force participation from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics points toward an even lower teen participation rate by 2024. Now, that was written in 2017.
Wow.
And
so what did the
our,
pandemic do? Do we know?
so I'm going to have to come back and look at what the impact to these findings. Wow. I wonder if you want to, I'm going to put this into Chat GPT and tell me if there's updated. It would have been great if they at the top linked to a more
Current or
recent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Content, management of content is a thing, right? And so taking your old content and making it more relevant, that's also it's important for AIO, GEO, or whatever you want to call it, as well as SEO. But if you're the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I don't think you have to worry so much. people,
Yeah.
people are going to find your stuff. But I think that while you're looking, I will vamp a little bit longer. But the idea of teen work, to your point, and to what I was talking about earlier in terms of these internship opportunities for college students, um, it's relevant. And I think, we have in my community, I am, I, I don't dare I say the word, I'm blessed, or we are blessed as a community to have a great technical program at our high school, at our public high school, and to have a difference in expectation of our children that they do work. And that creates a positive social pressure on the students. Maybe it's not pressure is a bad word, but a positive example for younger students who want to, at the age of 14, get their work permit and get their first jobs. And there are jobs in my community that are appropriate for young people. And there are companies in the service industry as well as others that have appropriate jobs for young workers. And so it's I would say from a community perspective, it's a positive because from a community perspective, it's a way for young people to be productive members of their society, gives them an understanding of the economy of their society or their community, and gives them a better appreciation for what that looks
Yeah, I agree.
like. Okay. And, we did it. I had a paper route and I babysat and I worked at the local country club, which sounds fancier than it was, but I was working there, not a
Well, they
member.
got sued for that, by the way.
Oh,
They got
why?
sued for positioning themselves as a country club because they received state funding,
Right. Okay.
and so they changed their name from country club to town park.
So I worked at a town park, Parks and Rec. Now I feel a lot better.
One of
Which,
I worked at the same town park, and one of our fellow employees, I think, was actually a full time employee there, as opposed to us being seasonal. But discovered that there were state pension benefits by being a town employee.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's useful.
yeah.
I did,
And I
however,
was going to
I
say, in
don't know if you,
hindsight, that that would have been a great job for 30 years.
well, so this is, we'll put a pin in that for a second.
Okay.
I want to tell you that I did actually work at a country club that was in our community.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I did not work at that country club. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
I did in the snack bar by the pool, serving people that were at a higher social status than I was at the time, which is illuminating. I mean, it's illuminating to see how people treat you as a young person in that community, but certainly, obviously, not of the same stature because I wasn't able to be a member. And also expectation setting and everything else. But fun, good experience. Also, food service. And what you said, though, about working a job like this. So before our call, thought about a client of mine who is in the service space and talked about the fact that early on, when the company was founded, the jobs that were created were supposed to be entry level only. They weren't supposed to be careers.
Mm.
And yet, what has happened is that, like you're saying, the percentage of teen labor has reduced rapidly. And the percentage of people in the service economy, rather than being young people, are now 30 plus. And one out of three, I believe, are sole providers for their families. And in these hourly service providing jobs that are on average are like 17 to 19 some odd dollars an hour and bank people 25 grand a year, and one out of three of those people is a sole provider for their family, you can start to see that we as a society have not sorted this out properly. When it was 25 grand a year or 19 bucks an hour or the equivalent at the time, and you were a young person who did not or might not have had the responsibilities for their own rent or other services, that's a good job. But when you're supporting a family, rent, food, insurance, healthcare on 25 grand, and by the way, uncertain hours, so you're not guaranteed your work, all of a sudden you can start to see where we have structural problems that I don't think we have sorted out yet.
So I parroted the advice that a mentor gave to me to my two 20 something age children recently. That was two quality behaviors that you could provide to your employer, excuse me, were accessibility and availability. And that advice to me was really meaningful.
Hmm.
I spent longer hours, especially in television production, where
Yep.
there's no consistency in hours. There's almost a requirement for you to be flexible and not just flexible, but work more than 40 hours a week. It was
Right.
never going to be 9 to 5.
Right.
And at the time, as a 20 something myself, I could do that. I could afford
Hmm.
to do that. Maybe not financially, because I was making $22,000 a year,
Right.
which was 50% less than what I knew some of my peers were making in similar roles, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
$36,000 a year as a starting salary in the late 90s and early 2000s, I think was a reasonable starting salary. We'll have to check those statistics. But what I realized was I was absolutely privileged to afford both the time and the financial resources
Yeah.
to provide essentially free labor.
Right.
And so when I was parroting that advice to my older children, I also cautioned them to say this is in some ways a privilege and a luxury for you to
Hmm.
be able to be that flexible. Not everybody can be. And it wasn't until I became a manager of people where I had parents coming to me and saying, I have children that I need to take care of, and I need some predictability, that
Right.
it dawned on me. Unfortunately, it took a long time to become aware of the challenges that not everybody is the same. Not
Right.
everybody has the financial capacity to work for free, which is an absurd thing
Hmm.
anyway. And then we blame the employee that it's their fault for not having the time or flexibility to work on the weekends, even though I'm not going to pay you to do that.
Right.
That was illuminating to me. I'm glad I got to that point. But you're talking about solving that problem. I think that's the correlation that we're looking to solve for is how can we help people have a high quality of life and not shame them for wanting that.
Right. Well, this leads into the discussion about stakeholder capitalism. So your employees are a stakeholder in your company, and particularly in a service-based industry. Um, so we constantly think about how the team collectively works together as a team to support each other to be the best we can be as a team.
It sounds too simple.
Well, somebody has to be willing to trade value, right? So what ends up happening is somebody else will decide that their business program doesn't require that support. And so they can come in and undercut you on price and work their employees in a way that burns those employees out. Um, and in the short term, the client is getting the service value that they wanted. Over the long term, what tends to happen is you see service degradation, particularly from a service based company. And also, the client starts to notice that there's this revolving door of people that they're dealing with. And that also equals service degradation. And so, at
Mm.
that point, said client will then get back into the market looking for a new solution. But out in the marketplace, are people willing to trade their time for less dollars? possibly, or have made different choices. So this is a marketplace economy, so we don't have to, but I like a marketplace economy because I think there are some ways and some ideas that are interesting and better, and it allows us to evolve and become beneficial. And then there are players in this marketplace-based economy that go, I am not the low-cost provider. I am a higher-cost provider, but the quality of my service is better, and therefore your results are better. And so while my sticker price may look like it is more, when you think about what I'm delivering, you're actually getting more value. Your value for dollar is higher, even though the outlay seems to be more in the short term. But these are discussions, and some people are good clients who want that level of service. Think about an Apple computer. You can buy a computer for a third, a quarter, a fifth of the cost, yet people still continue to invest in iPhones and MacBook Pros because of the quality, seamlessness, even though they know that the component parts are actually, they're not worth the price tag. They're not. But collectively, they have been imbued with value, and historically, that value has generally panned out for people in terms of their value equations. Like, I am willing to trade that capital for this product slash service because I believe that it works and because I believe that it has value to me.
In
Discussed.
addition to Munir Haddad, I want us to think about who we can bring onto this show to discuss the impact of AI on stakeholder capitalism.
Okay, I will think about that.
I would love to have that conversation, and I would love to have the conversation with someone who is providing our, our college students with career advice for the future.
Okay, that's a tight brief. I there's a there's a gentleman I have in mind, but I don't know whether he would be willing. So let me think about that one. There is also a classmate of mine, and she has a consultancy in this stakeholder capitalism space. I just have
Oh,
to I have to find out whether um, or what angle. I think that there are two actually classmates of mine, and I think their angle on stakeholder capitalism lends or tends to bend itself towards environmental sustainability as a stakeholder
hmm.
versus necessarily human. But uh, leave it with me. I've got a list. And it's the end of the year in our 14th episode, so it's hard to pin people down on timing.
Sure.
But what's really exciting about it being the end of the year and having all these great ideas for guests is that we're lining up a wonderful early next year roundup of people to speak with. I'm excited.
Same. I am as well. Awesome. I love you.
I love you too.
Hope you have a wonderful trip to the West Coast, or continue to have a wonderful trip on the West Coast, and
Thank you.
look forward to seeing you in the near future.
I will see you soon.
Bye.